Give the people what they want.
Welcome to Banking on Community. This is the podcast where we talk about all the issues and technologies affecting the community banking industry. I'm Saxon Prater, PR and Communications Manager over at CSI.
And I'm Tara Schultz, SVP of Strategic Insights and Industry Relations at CSI.
Brett Glover, Director of Relationship Management at CSI, and this will be the last episode, at least until next winter, where I will be donning a quarter zip.
It's not winter. I don't believe it.
I know, but we had a cold snap come through, so it is really cold. So
we rolled out of Memorial Day, and Brett's in a quarter zip. But I did wear a fur coat at the pool, so
I was shamed out of it entirely. That a few episodes ago with Tara and Mary, they were joking about quarter zips and the sweater vest. You'll notice I am not wearing that today. Those of you who are watching us on video. Well, today we're talking about the state of the industry, but we're going to think back to our recent event, CX25, and some of the things that we learned from you, our listeners, all of the attendees there, all of our expert speakers. They covered a ton of content. And so we're going to dig into like what we learned, where we think the industry is headed, and really any just observations. I think we should have some fun observations, and we'll start there. Guys, I feel like I'm in the presence of giants right now because I am speaking to the two hosts of our event. What was that like talking in front of everybody on the main stage?
It was awesome. I absolutely loved it. We had a ball with it. I mean, probably the really fun stuff is what people didn't get to see. And, you know, backstage with Tara and I making sure we knew what we were doing and when we're going on and who's talking first and who's going first. And, you know, other than that, you know, the moment that we come out after Sugar Ray with the robes and the boxing gloves. And I really felt like doing a little Chris Farley, Tommy Boy, you know, fat guy and a little boxing robe, because those were one size fits all. Tara's was draping and swallowing her, and mine looked like it was, you know, made by Under Armour. So, but it was fantastic. Yeah, a really fun way to engage and be a part of, you know, all things CX. It was good times.
I have an awesome photo of Tara trying to drink coffee with two boxing gloves, and actually I have right here my signed boxing glove from Sugar Ray Leonard. So if you're watching us on video, we're on YouTube or on CSIweb.com. Here it is in all its glory. There's only one.
I love that. I think one of my favorite moments was when we were all in glitz and glamour and glitter and got to go out with our Chief Experience Officer, Bobby Zell, and celebrate the most important part, our customers. So we got to spend several days connecting with customers, being in front of customers, helping customers and future customers, and being up there to celebrate at the Diamond Jubilee, celebrating our customers and all your success was awesome. And that was a favorite for me.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And there was a lot of just buzz. You can really feel the energy throughout the event where people were excited about, you know, it's not just about the technology and the products. A lot of it is just about being together. Of course, we had a lot of technology announcements too, which were pretty exciting. For instance, Brett, you were going to talk a little bit about some interest in a new partnership with YMCA.
Yeah, just, you know, that's one of the advantages of being together. I think our conference is a little bit unique in the way that we bring together CSI subject matter experts, our customers, but industry subject matter experts, all in one place for those few days. And it's really, you know, there's no tricks to it. It's just, you know, we're here to discuss and collaborate. And YMCA was definitely one of those announcements that came out of that has a lot of buzz to it, and been hearing a lot of great feedback, and a tool that, you know, can help community banks better engage their customers on their digital platforms. It's really exciting.
To add to that, one thing I really loved and loved the feedback from the customers is seeing more and more partners show up every year to help our financial institutions solve the problems that they need to solve. That's key, and that's a personal favorite moment from the event. But I have to mention the open banking marketplace that we had, and it really expanded this year. We had more fintechs that are being leveraged by financial institutions via API than we've had in the past. And that speaks to our growing philosophy around the importance of choice for financial institutions, and something that obviously I'm very personally passionate about too.
And we'd be remiss if we didn't also mention that we announced our TruProtect and TruDetect. So that's assist in real-time fraud prevention and detection, as well as AML, which is something that we heard time and time again is something that's really important to our customers. So I think there was a lot of excitement around that too. So, I mean, for me, just being with the customers, being with all of you, and a good shout out to anybody who stopped over at our live recording or just talked to us at some of the events. That was really the one of the highlights for me. We took a group to the Kennedy Space Center. We saw a rocket launch, which was just serendipitous. It was just lucky that it happened to be going that day. And that was just very cool to share with all of these community bankers from across the nation.
Yeah. One of the really cool things too, and I was surprised at how much feedback I got, was all of the people commenting on the old technology that we brought in, to reminisce about. And some of that was very old. And just seeing people, that used to work with, I remember when we installed that first computer, or that first mock of the, a debit card, compared with, right across the way, then we had a robotic bartender making drinks and specialty coffee drinks. It was just really cool and a great environment. And also, I forgot to mention, shout out to all the people behind the scenes at CX. When you asked about hosting, that was one of the coolest parts for me, is like, oh, this stuff doesn't just magically happen. There is a team of incredibly talented, incredibly dedicated folks back there, making it all happen, and that people like me, don't mess up and, put my mic in the right place and all of that stuff. So huge shout out to those folks. It was really fun to see that in action.
I agree. That team was awesome. They were a blast to work with, and our customers don't get to see the behind the scenes part, but they put in a lot of long hours just to make that event what it turned out to be. So agree with that, Brett. I also love the live podcasts that we did that you mentioned, Saxon. I always say I'll try anything once, and we knew it was risky bringing in those FinTech cowboys for episode 1. We were live, we were unscripted, and big shout out to Matthew Smith and Tanner Mayo for kicking us off for episode 1. No edits, but we kept it clean. We talked about growth and FIs, how many are leaning in on innovation and really finding the right partners to push forward and leveraging APIs. Whether that be for data movement or expanding their footprint in niche verticals. So that was awesome, and can't wait to do more of those live.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was a blast. And if you all at home or wherever you are listening to this, watching this, if you haven't checked out any of those episodes, there are 4 that are available. We cover a bunch of different topics. They were all recorded live. What you can't see on the screen is that robot bartender that Brett mentioned. I want to throw out that it wasn't just a bartender. It was also doing the YMCA at one point. So that was... If you see me on the screen, like looking around, usually there was some kind of distraction around. And that was one of them that was pretty funny to see.
Plenty of liquidity there in that bar.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
I'd throw it out one more time.
Got to get some mileage out of that one for sure.
So Tara, you talked about your some of your highlight moments. Brett, did you have any that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I think, all the fun stuff, obviously, was fantastic. The evening at Universal Studios, where we also saw a rocket in the sky that night, too, that nobody even knew about. I just thought it was part of something Universal Studios was, had going on. I think definitely a lot of the buzz was around a lot of the real-time fraud solutions that are being, brought to market. That's definitely top of mind. Financial institutions, the fraudsters don't stop. They're getting smarter and smarter and relentless. And so the ability to put those tools in the hands of the financial institutions for real-time fraud prevention was really exciting, and having, you know, partners there that have been in this space for a long time. I think of Adwait from Data Seers, and, you know, having him there and available, you know, to explain his expertise and it be personable. He also did a live podcast episode with us, and just incredibly impressed with his background, but very relevant and timely. So those are definitely some fun key moments for me. And then, I mean, I don't think anybody will ever forget Sugar Ray bringing up an individual at the end of his keynote, and who happened to be our chief legal counsel, and it was not planned or scripted, and you know, showing everybody that he still had lightning quick hands. That, for me, I was just yeah.
We had dinner last week, and he's still convinced, our chief legal is still convinced that either the executive team or in particular Jennifer Warner, our CMO, had a hand in picking him, but we were all hands off. It just happened to be that Sugar Ray picked the legal department, so we couldn't argue. Too good. What about noteworthy, you know, attendee or hallway conversations that you all had? What was the feedback you were getting?
One of the things that stood out to me, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but there was a banker that I was talking to, and this was at Universal Studios, and they just said, there's just a different feeling here. I've been to a bunch of different industry events, and there's just something special. Everybody feels connected. People feel like they actually like each other, and want to help each other. And I mean, I think that's true. And it was, like I said, it was awesome getting to hang out with people that I don't see on a day-to-day basis, but obviously all of our work is intertwined.
One of my favorite things to do is to interact with prospects that are there, because they seem to just be like, it is so refreshing that when they get to come in, it's like, we don't try to, you know, control their experience or dictate, you know, who they talk to or what they can go see or do. And, you know, there was one situation where there was actually a customer of mine that had a fairly new product they were working with, and still had some questions, and our partner happened to be there. And so it's just like, well, let's go grab them. The subject matter experts are here. And then I see somebody else walking by that I know has been using the same tool for a little bit longer. Hey, you guys come over here, introduce them, and, you know, be able to make those connections in real time. That's the stuff that just really gets me going, and being able to help those folks in real time like that, and just make those connections. So there was a lot of good buzz, and I think a lot of collaboration that took place that lasts well beyond, you know, the days that we were actually there together on site.
Yeah, I think our ability to have that transparency while all together, it's important, and it goes a long way. So the whole fact that we tell them, go where you want, ask who you need to ask in order to make the decision that's best for you and for your bank, whether you're existing customers today or hopeful future customers. I think that transparency goes a long way. So let's transition into some keynote takeaways. What about the main stage? What stuck out to you, Saxon and Brett?
Well, you know, I could play Chris Farley talking to Paul McCartney all day and just go, hey, wasn't it cool when? Like, do you guys remember when you did X? But I guess we got to get to the main meat of industry issues. So I'll talk about something specific with community banking that I remember from one of our keynotes. It was a call out to a recent ICBA report. And I just found this fascinating. This might be old news for some of our listeners, but essentially we see in the industry all the time, we have these big banks that are coming in and basically pretending to be community banks. They're saying like, we have a community bank approach. We're giving back to our to your communities, et cetera. But we kind of know that that's not really true. A lot of deposits are coming out of small communities and going into other communities where those big banks have a presence. But some of the data that stood out to me that I wrote down was that 98% of U.S. counties have at least one community bank or community bank branch, compared to just 64% of mega banks. So that's data point number one. I thought that was fascinating. But then there are a few other little sub-points. Community financial institutions make roughly 60% of U.S. small business loans under $1 million, 80% of agricultural loans, and are the only physical banking presence in one of 3 U.S. counties. That's crazy to me. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's not surprising, but it's something that I feel like we should be shouting from the rooftops, because that's 1 in 3 counties that without community banks, they wouldn't have a bank at all. So it obviously there are challenges inherent in that. All of these bigger institutions that are trying to mimic them and come into the space. But I mean, I kind of see that as a badge of honor in a way, because they're basically trying to copy to the best of their ability that business model that is a real differentiator, and it's the community bank's strength.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm more passionate than ever about serving this space, because community banks play such a vital role in local communities, local economies. And I'll just kind of piggyback on that, Saxon. And I thought that the session with Jason Dorsey was incredibly helpful to that conversation, because one of the things that community banks might not have is the entire dedicated team of a built-out marketing team. Right, resources are scarce. People wear multiple hats. Sometimes your marketing person is your compliance person or your chief operating officer. I've never met a community banker that only has one job to do in their day-to-day. And I thought his message was incredibly timely. And probably the biggest takeaway for me was in a nutshell, what I really took from his message was that, look, you don't have to be an expert in how every single generation is different. And, once their technology, it's really more, or that the technology that you have right now isn't what they need. It's really in how you communicate with them. And I thought that was so key. And he's obviously great, right? And does a fantastic job. And the way he engages the crowd is amazing. But I thought those were some very key important takeaways, because we all know about the generational trends and the transfer of wealth, and community banks have every ability to compete in that space with younger generations and Gen Z, just as the big banks do. And so I thought that was incredibly timely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll have what he's having from an energy level standpoint. Wow, his energy's off the charts. And I think you hit it very well. We never put generations in a box, but it certainly helps you better understand both the employees you work with, as well as, the customers you serve today, and those you want to think about from a technology standpoint, what you need to serve the future generations and be there for different stages of life as well. I know we do have an upcoming webinar. Saxon, do you have the details on that?
Yeah, we've got 2 more coming up over the next couple months. And we actually had one already. It was, as you mentioned, I wish I could bottle his energy. It's just infectious, his level of energy, but his wealth of knowledge is also just enormous. So if you want to learn more about how to engage talent across generations, attract new customers, be on the lookout for those. We'll be hosting those webinars live, so you can watch them and learn a little bit more from Jason. We also obviously have a podcast that we recorded on site, so if you want another taste of his energy and expertise, you can go check that out today.
Yeah, so let's pivot into, CX25 is all about connections, but it's also revealing where the industry's headed to, and what was the entire tone and vibe of the attendees. And from my standpoint, it was really resilience and optimism in the face of challenges. I think if we look back to November, December timeframe, a lot of our bankers, they were optimistic, and come the spring, many were feeling the uncertainty. But what shows up continually is the commitment and the passion that they have to serve the communities that you discussed earlier, Saxon. And, really looking for who will be there to help them grow. The bankers are looking for who will be there, who will be their partner to help them grow. So I feel like they left optimistic. They came seeking answers to their biggest problems, and they were really leaning in on collaboration and opportunities that'll make them stronger and really more prepared for the future. So I love that growth mindset of the community financial institutions that showed up and really engaged and leaned in on the event. What about you guys?
Yeah, I concur. Definitely. That was, the optimism that you talk about. I mean, that was palpable. You could definitely feel that. And listen, I mean, it's not the first time that community banks have faced uncertainty or uncertain future, or how are we going to do this? I'm amazed that time after time, they answer the call, they ring the bell, and figure it out. And usually we figure it out together. That was, for me, was so encouraging of like, yes, we had customers there from all across the country, some in very close proximity to each other. Yet there was very much a spirit of, hey, we're stronger together. We have to figure this out together, even if we compete against one another, which is super encouraging. And, it is a time of uncertainty. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't connect that back just real quick. I don't want to, necessarily go back to the keynotes, but I think it's one of the reasons our customers connect with us so well is our transparency as a company. And we're experiencing a time of great change, but uncertainty all the way from, Linda Fisher's sharing, our chief operating officer, which was incredibly inspiring. I know, Tara, you and I were backstage. I was crying. We were a mess. But then, some incredibly transparent moments about, changes in leadership and David Culbertson's sharing. And then the chairman of our board, Frank Martiri. It's just so rare to see leaders of a company, step up with that kind of authenticity and transparency. And that connects, right? It just reminds me of culturally, the alignment between us and our customer base is really one and the same.
Yeah, and I appreciate that people don't really sugarcoat things that are challenges. So, we talk about like industry consolidation, competition for deposits, just general keeping up with technology. Those are real challenges, and they shouldn't be undervalued or underplayed, but they are challenges that can be faced collaboratively. And I think that's a really inspiring and just reaffirming piece of this conversation when we all get together and we put our heads together of how can we be better? How can we do better? How can we, combat those challenges? And as you say, Brett, a ton of that is transparency. When I was looking at the surveys, some of the most popular sessions that people had attended were on AI and banking. That's probably not a huge surprise for us. That's a huge topic. It will continue to be so. We've already talked about it several times. The threat landscape, so that's one that's more about cybersecurity, risk, fraud, and AML. So that's one of the challenges that banks are facing. A lot on digital banking. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but things about how do we engage the younger generation? How do we have a development over time where we start young and keep those customers and nurture them throughout their development? And another big one, hosted by Miss Tara Schultz there, Banking in 2025. Tara, tell us about your panel.
Yeah, so Banking in 2025 panel, it was all around blending technology and all that is coming at this industry from a technology change standpoint, and that balancing act of leveraging the new tech with keeping and building the trust that you've built with your customers. So we combined a panel providing really different perspectives from ICBA's Kevin Twiddle, CSI's Matt Herron, I was on it, and Velocity Solutions, we had Cindy Draper. She's now with CSI. So we talked about deposit growth tactics that are actually working for financial institutions. Talked about efficiency, and that's listed at the top of every survey in the financial services industry right now as the top priority. But how banks are really making progress and some use cases around that. We talked about the whiplash of the regulatory landscape, AI and fraud. And then I even did a live poll in a consultant meeting that I had, and over 40% confirmed that one of the top priorities and the top pain points of the FIs that they're working with is fraud. So it's timely, it's relevant, it's a real problem that is at the top of the stack to solve. And it's evolving every day. I mean, part of that technology is being used against us after all. So it's important to bring our customers that protection without the complexity for those we serve. So a lot of mix there, but it was a really engaging panel for and with our customers.
Yeah, fraud was a huge topic. I had written down a couple just kind of noteworthy quotes from one of our sessions. AI-powered social engineering has emerged as one of the largest threats in the last 12 to 18 months, including deepfake audio and video. They say it's a 240% increase over the past year. That's a lot. And we talk about AI as hopefully being a solution to a lot of these problems, but it's also a tool for fraudsters as well. So it's something that our banks really need to be aware of. There's another interesting quote that I had here. Amateurs hack systems, professionals hack people. That's from a Bruce Schneier, an American computer science. And then there's scientists, and then there's a just general trend of crime as a service increasing. So all of those things together make it imperative that we have the best technology to detect anything that's suspicious, but that also you're always alert, that you train your people, all of that.
Yeah, I have to tag in here, Saxon, because I just want to clarify. There was a situation at CX where some karaoke happened, and there was video taken, and that is not if you happen to get a snippet of that, that's not a deep fake. That's not. If it's me, it's real, unfortunately. So that actually happened, but yeah. Just to have a little bit of fun.
If it's me, it is a deep fake. So
yeah, if it's Tara, it's a fake. If it's me, it happened and it's real. Sometimes you just got to give the people what they want. They were asking for it. So, but yeah, definitely with what you're talking about there. And I am intrigued. We did, after our annual survey, also AI was at the top of the list, right? And then in that short amount of time to then already see how our customers are thinking about that, and not just the partners that are coming to the table, but how they are experimenting and putting that to work in their own environments and their own use cases that work for them. It's changing rapidly, and that was really encouraging and also very interesting to learn about and hear about.
Another interesting forward-looking technology that really stuck out to me. I don't know very much about quantum computing, but this had shown up in a couple sessions, actually, some that are based on risk, and some, friend of the podcast, Adwait Joshi, he had a session as well. And they talked about quantum computing as the next thing. And I won't belabor the point too much, but there were a couple things that I thought were really interesting. It would take a regular computer 300 trillion years to crack a 2048-bit digital key, so basic encryption. Quantum computer, it would be double that in 10 seconds. Sometimes these numbers are just so massive that we don't really even have context for them, but just being myself, I looked up, what is 1 trillion seconds like? Any guesses? 31,709 years. So
that was going to be my guess.
Maybe this is not as interesting to other people, but sometimes when we see these numbers like trillion and we look at quantum computing, like that's something a little further ahead, but it's something that came up as a potential way to improve portfolio management and cybersecurity, various different things that I think could help in a lot of these efforts.
Yeah, I had the over-under there at 25,000 years, but it's that stuff makes my head blow. Like it just instantly, and I think it's like any other. I mean, it's coming, right? And it's incredibly interesting to learn about. And I think it's just like any of the other technologies that come to play. Is like there are going to be those that use it for harm, and it's going to be incredibly powerful in how it can be used for good. And to know that we already have people, like an Adway out there that's a community banking advocate, thinking, okay, how can we begin to harness this and to use this for good and for the betterment of our industry is incredibly relieving, because you sure don't want me at the helm of quantum computing.
Yeah.
No comment. Okay,
all right,
so speaking of gaining momentum, technology that's gaining momentum, let's talk really quick about technology that's gaining momentum this year in particular. AI, we've barely scratched the surface on how AI will really impact our industry, but there's also a lot of confusion in the industry with what's real and what's hype. And one of our next podcasts we're going to record in July is going to have on Kate Drew from CCG to talk about this, but how it's a double-edged sword. Obviously, the same tools that are helping us save time daily, they're helping criminals perpetrate fraud. They're helping, but they're really helping us and helping banks leverage AI for real-time detection, automation, risk mitigation, all of the things that we need. So what we're seeing and hearing and heard even more at conferences, a lot of banks are making true progress alongside of us on back office operations with, manuals, procedures, support. But we've come so much farther already, and we're just scratching the surface. So I was listening to a podcast this weekend that I was recently on called Counting on Change. One of our bankers was on this. And just a quick tip for a lot of community financial institutions out there. This particular bank is around $250 million in assets. They have made tremendous progress on the pain of procedural updates, but they've launched into even using AI for so much more now. But they bring together a weekly task force, and they force representation from every single department across the financial institution. So they don't just use the tech to use the tech. They are prioritizing across that committee the most critical problems in the organization that need to be solved, and that need to be solved for them to grow and to be more efficient. So that's just another use case. Small bank, they're not dumping a ton of money into this, but they're being smart and they're making progress every single month with that. So just wanted to share that real quick because it was top of mind.
I think it's a great point. And I think, we talk about sometimes the challenges that community banks can have from a resource constraint wise and maybe expertise. But one advantage that they have, right, is they know their organization so much more intimately, and the other areas and operations and tech and the different things like that, and can collaborate so much quicker that efficiency can be experienced faster. Which I think is just a lot of times we talk about the challenges, but there are advantages for community banks that are of smaller asset size. And a lot of it is, they're in the same room with each other a lot too, and that's easier. And so they can pivot and move fast. So just like you, Tara, I'm super encouraged by that. And I think we're going to continue to hear of successes in ways that, community banks are changing that for themselves and then sharing that with each other.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So we've discussed. I feel like we've recapped this thing. We could keep talking for out, but yeah. It was such a great event. And if you didn't get a chance to come, or maybe you've never come before, what a better time than, I guess, if they haven't heard, CX26 is going to be in Denver, so you can come out to Denver, experience all these amazing things with us, and maybe take a little vacation up to Rocky Mountain National Park. End of April 26th in Denver. April 12th through 15th.
April 12th through the 15th.
Yeah, thank you. Come experience all this firsthand in Denver. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and looking ahead, we have a really exciting next episode as well. Those of you, we already alluded to this earlier in the podcast, but we have a new CEO here at CSI, and we are going to bring her onto the podcast. Her name is Nancy Langer. She's got a ton of experience in financial services, and we really want to pick her brain about her vision of the future of community banking technology. So I'm really excited about that one, guys.
I've just heard her on the internal town hall so far, but I think she's on some of that Jason Dorsey energy. She is energized and ready to go. I'm super excited. And I think that'll be a super fun conversation for us to have together.
Well, if you have any questions you'd like to submit, or you have suggestions for future podcasts, we're all ears. It's how we give the people what they want. You can find us on csiweb.com, on YouTube, or LinkedIn. Guys, do you have anything that you'd like to say to our listeners?
Thanks for being with us today, and we look forward to the next episode with Nancy. And Brett, keep in mind, it's summer. Quarter zips.
No more quarter zips. I'll be in a polo. Keep fighting the good fight, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time.